Welcome back everyone to another episode. This week I'm going to be showing you guys how to properly maintain your RODI unit. So I'm sure a lot of you, not all of you, but a lot of you have your own RODI units at home. This is a great way for you to make the ultra pure, cleanest water for your reef tank. Now, being as great of a system as it is, it also does require maintenance like a lot of things in our reef tank, mainly with the filter cartridges. In this specific scenario, we have a sediment filter, a carbon block, and then the DI resin, as well as a membrane found up here on the top. You may notice these aren't filled yet. These are going to be filled with DI resin, which I'm going to be showing you guys today, as well as we're going to be mixing and matching some filters here. But the same idea is going to apply. You know, if you're only replacing sediment, or if you're only replacing carbon block, or if you're only replacing the DI resin. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit the only thing I've changed in this, I've had the system for about 3 years. I've only changed the DI. I've never changed carbon block, never changed sediment filter, as you can clearly see, and I've never changed the membrane. Surely I probably wouldn't recommend going 3 years like I have. I would at very least change the sediment, carbon blocks once a year, and then the DI resin, that one gives you a clear notification when it's out, one by the color changing media, and two by the TDS meter. Same with the membrane. I'd probably be changing membrane, sediment filter, carbon block at least once a year, just to keep everything in tip-top shape. Once you figured out which cartridge you're gonna wanna change, in my scenario it's gonna be all of them, but in some scenarios you may not be replacing all of them. Maybe you're just replacing your DI, maybe just your carbon block, maybe just your sediment filter. In my case, it's gonna be all of them, so it's a good idea to grab the little tool. A lot of these kits, especially the BRS RODI units, it comes with these, makes it a lot easier. You can remove them without it, but you'll find that the seals, they tend to get pretty tight on them, making them pretty difficult to remove at times. But removing them is very simple. You just slide this through the top, give it a little twist, and then it's good to go. Then you can easily just remove it by hand. For video purposes, I'm only going to be showing you guys how to replace one of the DI cartridges. Again, I don't think there's any need for me to show you, in my case, how to replace 3 of them because it's the same step. The DI one is going to be the one that's a little bit more time consuming. Why? Because the resin itself inside is replaceable with carbon block, membrane, or sediment filter. You throw the whole thing away. You throw the whole thing away and it's not reusable. So it's super easy. In that case, you would toss, the whole filter away and you're done. Here with the DI one, the cartridge, these have never been filled, so it's obviously empty. But if it was a used one, you would open it up, you would drop out and throw away, discard all the DI resin that's inside, and then you would replenish it with the new one. Being that you do have to load the cartridges in these, there is a right way of doing it and a wrong way. So I'll be showing you today how simple it is to do the DI one, and you'll see if you follow along, it's gonna be pretty simple. I recommend when you are doing this, do it on a place where you don't mind the little DI resin balls getting out. That's why I'm doing it outside. In the kitchen, you can do it like in a sink. I would recommend probably in a sink, because you'll see when I open this up, they're tiny little balls that they easily get everywhere you don't want them. So you want to be very careful with it. They're not going to damage anything or hurt anyone, but they just can be a pretty big mess. Putting it up is very easy, or at least it should be. And there you're able to see what they look like inside. It's a bunch of little, probably smaller than 1mm balls, and this is the mixed version, so you'll see it has both of them in there. It is going to create a mixed bed, which should give us pretty clean water. These cartridges are loaded from the bottom side. Just make sure you remove the sponge, which I already did. I don't know if you saw when I removed it, but it was in here. Once you do remove the sponge, it's very simple to load it. Just pretty much put it inside here. So once you do have it initially loaded to the very top, it's very important that the DI resin itself is packed very hard. So Bulk Reef Supply sells this measuring cup. I don't know how much a 250 milliliter measuring cup, and it actually fits perfectly right around the mouth of this cartridge. So what you do, push it, and while banging it on the surface, you're able to hard pack it. And there you're able to see you make a little bit more room for some more DI resin. And you want to make sure it's as hard packed as you can get it. because this is going to allow the media to perform better and obviously not allow any bad water to pass around it. Because the goal for this media to work, you want all the water to be passing through it and not around it. Just enough to fill one cartridge. They do sell, I think, a bigger size where you can do multiples, but this bag I ordered is enough to fill one cartridge. So there you can see it, it's already oozing out of the side, which tells me it's probably more than enough packed. Give it a few more hits, and that should be good. It doesn't necessarily need to be all the way to the very top, because if you pay attention to this cap, this piece actually comes down about that far. So it should be fine, even though it's not all the way to the top, you won't have an issue. But you are going to have to make enough room for this small little sponge or filter, whatever you want to call it, by using your finger to draw a little round circle right at the very edge of it, just to make enough space for this to seat in. It doesn't take that much material. Before you do seat the foam, you want to make sure you clean off the threads as good as you can and the top of the lip, just so you can keep out as much of the resin itself off of the threads. I mean, you'll get a little bit on them, which doesn't matter, but if you can decrease it, it'll be a little bit better. So once you have it all pretty cleaned, you could see we left just enough space for this in the middle. So it should be able to just seat right on top. Once you got it, you know, it may take a little bit of wiggling, but it should fit nice and easy. And I think I only got one little bead on the threads. Once it is there, make sure it's seated nicely, and that's one of them already fully complete, ready to go. Pay attention to how you do install this back into the cartridge. You actually load it from the bottom, and there's also an arrow showing this end towards cap. So this is the end that's going to go to the very top, which is this end here. Up next is the carbon blocks. Now these are the ones that I mentioned is a lot easier. Normally you'll probably only have one. I'm doing two because I'm doing an upgrade and it's kind of overkill, but it's okay. Replacing these is simple. You take out the old one and just replace it with the brand new one. There's one, and then the second one, just literally drop it in. There we go. So that completes the carbon blocks. Up next is the sediment, followed by the membrane. Coming up is going to be the sediment. I actually went down to a 1 micron. What's in there from BRS is a 5 micron. All this means is this will filter out 5 times smaller debris than this one here. Yeah, I may have to replace it more often, but it's all right. So all you do with this one is just discard it, get rid of it, and then replace it with your brand new one. For this one, nor the carbon block, there is no right and wrong direction. It does not matter what way you put it in. Just make sure it seats on, there's a little ring on the very, very bottom. As long as it seats in there, you will be fine. Now you can go back and install this one. And lastly, it's going to be the membrane. Here we have the replacement membrane. Mine is a 75 gallon per day, so I obviously want to replace it with a 75. And we got the membrane fully disconnected. Pay attention when you are removing these that you know what line goes where. It's always good to take a picture of it before you disassemble it, because then it's a lot easier to put it back together. There you go, that's what the membrane looks like inside. And you can see there's some gunk in there. I'll probably clean it up a little bit, because this, again, this here is 3 years old. I've never even messed with it. I noticed the seal around the membrane is actually pretty good. I could wiggle it, but I can't get it out. So I got this little hook. It should. There you go. Wow, that, as you guys heard, that actually took some pressure to get it out. But that was this O-ring here. It made a really tight seal. And you can see the membrane right here. And just to confirm, you do have the same one. You can compare them side by side. And from what I can see, it's the same exact part numbers, different labels slightly, but same part numbers. With this membrane, it's very, very important that the bottom seals, you can see there's 2 seals, but it seals all the way on the inside there. There's a little place or a slot it'll actually go into. And again, you want to make sure it sits in there, because if not, the water is going to be passing all around the membrane and really not even doing its job. pretty happy with that. So you can give this a little cleaning if you want. I probably will, just because I am noticing quite a bit of debris come out of it. So I'm going to give this a quick rinse and then cap it right up. All the gunk is out. Just seal it right back up. Hand tight is more than enough. It doesn't need to be, you know, with a tool, but now we got to do is go put it back. Make sure again your orientation if you took a picture, but just hook it back up how it was. Once everything's said and done, you should have a total, well, maybe not this one, but 3 cartridges. Why not this one? Because this one gets reused and installed again. But this is what we replaced, starting with the DI resin, carbon filter, sediment, and the membrane. The last thing is going to be, anytime you do change filters, you want to run your RODI for at least 15-20 minutes. You could just drain that to the sink. That's water you don't want to use. Why? Because it's just going to be cleaning up any excess debris that wasn't there from mainly from the carbon blocks, because they're small little carbon pieces or carbon dust. But yeah, that's, again, just with rinsing that out, letting it run, you should be good. After this, just power it up and you can go ahead and start using your water, and you should be good for at least another year. The only one you may need to maintain before that is going to be your DI, but that's really going to depend on your TDS, how quickly it comes up, and your source water. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions on it, please leave them down in the comment box below. I thought I would do a video on this because before I did this, I tried researching videos to see how to do it because I was so afraid of it. I found very little information. I did find some from bulk reef supply, but they were broken up in different segments. So I figured, why not do one video that shows you how to replace pretty much your whole RODI system. So thank you guys very much for watching. As always, happy reefing.